Hi, and welcome to Chris, who is joining me today on the Smart Online Tutoring blog. It's fantastic to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Can you start just by introducing yourself a little bit? Tell us about who you are, and then we'll get straight into chatting a bit more about online tutoring.
Okay, awesome, Matt. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Chris Rush. I've been an online ESL teacher for about 8 years. So this is essentially all I've done since, as we say in America, since before it was cool. So that's my background. And in the past couple of years, I've sort of transitioned to more helping other online and in person, but more specifically online ESL teachers get more students, save time, become more efficient. So I'm part of the team at Off2Class.com, which is an online ESL toolkit. And that's where we make a lot of resources. We have the toolkit that we use, but also my job is kind of connecting with teachers to help them be their best when it comes to independent online ESL teaching.
Absolutely. Sounds like we are doing two very similar things at the moment in terms of the type of teaching that we do, and also the help for other tutors as well.
Yeah, I think we have a lot in common.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is really my heart and goal for the Smart Online Tutoring blog to help other teachers and tutors get started and grow an online tutoring business. So it's fantastic to have you on the blog today to share your wealth of experience and input into this area as well. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, so let's start with a typical question that we've probably both heard from online tutors, which is, how do I get started? And specifically, are there technical requirements? Do I need to get a website? Do I need to get a calendar, a payment processor? Do I need all of these things to get started with tutoring ESL online?
Yeah, boy. So this is definitely something that comes up a lot, and I'm sure you have your own way that you answer this. And I would actually, once I share how I approach this, I would love to hear your input as well.
Yeah.
So when teachers come with this, the nutshell of it is that it's really easy to get stuck in the planning phase. And if you get stuck, the longer you get stuck in the planning phase, the less likely you are to ever escape the planning phase. So teaching ESL online is a relatively simple process. I'm here, I have a camera, I have a computer, I have Zoom or Skype or whatever, and my student is on the other side and we're talking. When you strip away everything else, we're talking about two people having a conversation over the computer. Uncomplicated.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to get overwhelmed and whether intentionally or not, make it into something that's way more complicated than it needs to be. So now we're going to like get a little more focused. So that was like the really big picture. To make it a little more focused, what I tell people is the focus should be how quickly can you get one student? That is the focus. Because I think what we want to do is we want to like, oh, let's start doing research on websites. Let's spend time making a logo. Let's think of a catchy name and create social media profiles. All of those things, they are somehow exciting, right? Because it makes what we're doing sometimes feel more real, which I understand. But that's not the thing that's going to make results, right? What we want to try to do is make the distance of time between deciding I want to do this and getting my first piece of income as
Right.
short as possible. And it's all about that first piece of income. It's not about I want to lay the groundwork for an online course empire or whatever the things, or like I want to be set up so that I can have an online school with 1,000 students. What really is the important thing is getting one student to purchase one lesson. The faster you can do that, the more likely you are to have success. So the answer to the question, finally, is that you really don't need a lot of those things. There are free or very inexpensive solutions to all of those things. So, for example, Zoom has a free plan. Amazing. Totally worth it, and you can do it. Calendly.com is a calendar booking software, integrates with Google Calendar. Calendly is free. Google Calendar is free. I've talked about Zoom. So all of these things that you actually must have, where a laptop with a webcam, and you don't need the newest, fastest computer. You just need something that's made in the last 5 years. That's probably going to be good enough. When it comes to technology, right, your internet connection is going to be more important than the hardware that you're working on. So no, you don't need this, and this. Don't worry about those things. And look, maybe you don't like Google Calendar. Maybe your students don't use Zoom. Maybe your students use something else. Fine. In all of these technologies, there are competitors. And the competitors are also free or very inexpensive. The important thing is you make the decision so that you can check it off the list, so that then you can move on to the next thing. Because taking these steps and knocking them off your list is what's going to help you shorten that gap between making that decision and getting one payment for one lesson.
Okay, so it sounds like the overarching theme or answer there is focus on what's most important.
Absolutely.
It's very easy, isn't it, to get distracted by a lot of different things. And you've mentioned all sorts of different options that you can go for. But really, the ultimate goal is to do some tutoring, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I remember the very first student that I ever taught online. And once you have that first student and you teach them and they hand the money over to you, whether that's physically or whether that's online, it's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. When that changes everything, right? That moment, because that's when it's real. You're like, okay, now I'm an online tutor because someone has paid me for this service that I'm providing.
Sure. Now, it's not to say that things like websites can't be a part of the process, because they absolutely can, and that for me that's played an important part in growing my online tutoring business. You're not saying that, are you? But ultimately,
No,
it doesn't have
absolutely
to be the
not.
priority.
Yes, and really, I'm really specifically tailoring what I'm saying to someone who wants to get started.
Okay, so that's something important.
So yes, so because look, social media, website, all these things are wonderful, and they're important and powerful tools to help you grow a business.
Yeah.
Um, and so that becomes critical. But I think it's a mistake to get caught up in those things because you're doing things out of sequence, right? To use in another American idiom, you're putting the cart before the horse. Actually, I don't even know if that's American. That might as well, very, very well may be British. So you have to think about kind of your goals, because a lot of times if you're getting started, you haven't done this before, you might not like it, right? You might do it for a little while and decide, this isn't for me. And so rather than invest all of this time, this energy, these resources on things that may or may not be useful, it's really helpful just to kind of get started,
Yeah.
right? Like if you want to run a marathon, the first thing that you don't need to read 10 books on marathon running. What you really need to do is, get a pair of running shoes and start get out there and get on the road and start building up your body. And as that happens, you're learning. So it's the same thing. You want to have a business, you want to have a website, amazing, go for it. But don't learn about it at the expense of getting the real experience.
Okay, great. And that is normally followed by another question, or this might even be the very first question that many tutors ask is, well, how do I get a student? How do I find my first student?
Yeah, boy, and look, this is the crux, right? Because this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where you've got to go ahead and get out and go for that first run. So here's kind of what I see. I'll talk about what I see a lot of tutors doing that maybe isn't necessarily the most efficient thing. A lot of tutors say they set up some sort of free trial, right? And they say, okay, they've got like a maybe a one-page website or into their booking system or a social media page where they say, book a free trial with me, book a free trial. And then they take this message of book a free trial and they send it to the world. They email it to people. They do it like kind of in a non-personalized way. They're making Facebook posts. They're sending copied, like a copy pasted email that goes out to many people. And the problem is that tends to have very little results. And when we could get into why, there's a lot of reasons why. That's not necessarily the reason for our conversation, but essentially, I'm a teacher. So I know that my free trial is valuable because I'm going to give you, the mistakes that you make. We're going to make a plan for how to help you improve. I know how valuable our trial is going to be. But to a prospective student, free also means has no value at all, right? Things that are free are not valuable. So yeah, I might sign up for a free trial, but if 5 minutes before my free trial starts, my friend calls and says, hey, you want to go to the movies? Well, this is a free trial. I'll book a new free trial next week. I'm going to go to the movies right now. Why? Because it's free. And then I think the other big thing is that a free trial is not appealing, right? Or it's a free trial. People know that a free trial also just kind of means a sales pitch, and nobody really wants that. It's about making it more personalized. But I'm getting too deep down into this. I want to answer the question. Okay. So the answer to the question is, how do you get the first student? The answer is you've got to do it manually, and you've got to do it individually. Okay. So you start with your network. Who do you know? Like, think about do I have aunts and uncles and cousins who might know somebody that is like that might need to improve their English? Are there people on Facebook that I could send an individual Facebook message to? People that are already my friends on Facebook, not strangers. But here's the problem with that. That's scary. And we're risking rejection. Yeah. And we can't just copy the script that says, take my free trial and hit paste and send. You actually have to write something to them. That's like, hey, I just want to let you know, right? How are you? How's that thing that is in your life that I happen to know about? I want to let you know what's going on with me. I'm doing this new project about teaching English online. I'm wondering. I know that this might be something you need help with. Are you interested in having a 20-minute conversation with me where I can talk to you about help you with maybe some of your most common mistakes? Or whether it's, hi, Aunt so-and-so, I know that you work in this community that has a lot of non-native speakers. I'm doing this new project. Would you be willing to share my information with some of the people in your network? These are not easy things to ask because somebody might say no. And we all, nobody wants to be rejected. So I think a lot of the other things that we can do are because people and me, we would rather not do this uncomfortable stuff. And it's this is what is going to lead to the result.
Okay, so just to summarize, getting your first student requires some personal contacting of your network, so people that you know. it requires some extra effort, not just copying and pasting a very standardized message. Yeah, I totally agree that does not work. It's really important to be personalized and specific, and also just don't come across spammy or salesy. Um,
Absolutely.
that's important, right? Um, and also just be aware that some people might say no, but that's okay because, hey, some people might say, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm looking for right now. Or even if Uncle Bob is a fluent native English speaker, he very might well know somebody at work who is a non-native,
Right.
who he
Right.
thinks, yeah, that's just the sort of person that would benefit from some online English lessons. And
Yeah.
I personally have found it's a lot easier to sell online English lessons to people that you know or that have been recommended by somebody that you know. It's a common thing, isn't it? We all look for recommendations.
Absolutely.
We'll ask our friends and family, hey, can you recommend this? And it's exactly the same with tutoring online as well.
Yeah, and I think there are many ways to go about it, but just through seeing so much trial and error with a large number of teachers over a large period of time, that's generally the route I recommend as being the shortest and the most likely to give that so important early victory and affirmation that you're doing the right thing. And all of the other things, trial lessons are great, and bookings, all of those things are so important, but for the very beginning, getting that student is the priority.
Okay, great. So thanks for the tip. I absolutely agree that is an excellent way to get started, to get new students. Um, but I think a lot of people, particularly when it comes to teaching the first lesson, let's say they've got their first student, they're excited, they're ready to go, but now comes the crunch. Okay, what do I teach? How do I teach? What
Yeah.
materials shall I use? Maybe they have only ever used a physical textbook, for example,
Right.
to deliver a face-to-face lesson, or that's their own personal experience of learning. So,
Yeah.
how does a new teacher go about finding the right materials for teaching ESL?
Okay, this is important. Um, Textbooks are not suited really for online. Um, in addition to the fact that, okay, the teacher has to have one, the student has to have one, and then you get into this issue where the student is doing this, right? And when you see somebody when you see the top of their head on the camera, you don't know if they're on their phone or if they're looking at, they could be on the wrong page. What page are we on? No, the one with the picture with the duck on it. I don't see a duck, I see a rabbit. So it's just like all of this, like when we're doing online, we want everything to be right here. I want everything to be on the screen. And so again, just to contextualize, this is the reason why a lot of people work for companies, right? They want to work for companies because scheduling is handled, video conferencing is handled, payments are handled, material is handled. And the issue is that there's a hefty price to pay for that. And the hefty price that you're paying there is the very low wages from working for a company relative to what you could charge as an individual. And the fact that the companies that are doing this are constantly recruiting. Teachers are coming, teachers are going. You're a number more than you're a name is usually what happens. And the online companies, because they have these numbers, they would rather have five um, okay teachers than one or two super great amazing teachers. It's all about how many people can we reach that can like meet this minimum threshold. And so these teachers that are go above and beyond, who are really doing a great job, it's like that almost gets lost. So what we're talking about is when you want to do this individually. So when you want to do this individually, you do need to make these decisions. You have to say, gosh, am I going to use Skype? Am I going to use Zoom? Am I going to use WeChat? You know, and like I said before, just pick one and move on. Pick one and move on. Where this gets tricky, and not so pick one and move on, is when it comes to the actual lesson materials that you're going to use. Because there are not, you know, 10 different free competitors out there that have all of these things in one platform. This thing that I'm talking about, this is the reason that Off2Class was created. So Off2Class was founded 5 years ago, and it was made very specifically for online teachers. And in the beginning, it was nothing but lessons, just lessons that were made to be delivered online. But today, with 5 years of development, Off2Class has become what we try to make a really one-stop shop for teachers. So essentially, it's the lesson materials that are meant to be delivered online. It's asynchronous homework assignments that are connected to the lesson so that the student has something to do on their own that reinforces what you learned in the live lesson. Yeah. And of course, homework gives them a reason to keep coming back to your next lesson because you're going to check the homework. And then the third thing is a placement test. And the placement test, basically, you give the student the placement test, student takes the placement test, collects all their errors, and all the errors are connected to the lessons in the library that fix the errors, so you don't have to go, what do I teach? It's all right there. Right. So Off2Class is what fills that missing gap, because payment processor, PayPal, unless you're in a place where something else is used, then you use something else. Video software, Zoom, unless you're somewhere where Skype is better or you need to use WeChat, then you use that. Scheduling, Calendly, Google Calendar. Easy, 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 easy. What do I actually teach? Less easy. Right. So that in evaluating this process of how an online teacher goes about their process. Okay, what do I do? I'm new. Okay, well, here you're going to get this. You need this. You need this. These are easy. Oh wait, what am I going to use in the classroom? This is why we made Off2Class.
Okay, and I can absolutely vouch for Off2Class. I discovered it relatively early on when I was searching exactly that, searching online for good quality online ESL materials. I found Off2Class and started using it, and it was great. And I've shared already on the blog several times about how I have used it personally to teach online. And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about the content of Off2Class and what's included. But I think when we start talking about online materials, people have a concern about whether it's really going to help me as an ESL tutor. So you've mentioned that it's easy, it's all in one place, it's ready to go. You know, that sounds great. But let's say, for example, somebody who is completely new to teaching online, is it going to be suitable for an absolute beginner? Maybe somebody who sees himself as a newbie or really not very tech savvy.
Yeah, right. So the answer is yes. We try to make it as absolutely simple as possible. So what that means is that technically speaking, the way that it's set up, you don't even have to get into like screen sharing and all that stuff. The way it works is super simple. I log in, and if you're my student and I'm your teacher, I log in on my computer. You log in on your computer. We're seeing each other's faces and hearing each other over Zoom, just like we are now, or Skype, or whatever system we're using. When I open a classroom on Off2Class to bring up the lesson slides are automatically synced on your side. So as the teacher, I'm looking at lesson slides that you see too. When I press next slide, it changes for you, and you see exactly what I see. And so that's it from the technology. We have video tutorials. We have a Facebook community. We do a webinar every week. All of those things are designed to help people through this learning process. So we do have a lot of support systems in place. Now, the other really big thing is we have teachers' notes. So when I'm signed in on my side as a teacher, every slide has a panel of teacher notes that as the student you don't see. And so that really helps because if I'm nervous about something, I don't want to, as a teacher, I better know the answer to the question I'm asking the student. Well, the answers are always there on the lesson slides. And it tells you the purpose of the slide, what you're doing, a little note on what the next slide is. And so what we're seeing, especially now that Off2Class has a free plan, so we're seeing people who are not ESL teachers by background. They're people who see that there is a need for ESL teaching in their community. And so they say, okay, well, this is a system and that has the notes that give me everything I need to break it down and make it as simple as possible. And now I can use this in my community. I can create a free account. I have access to lessons. I can give a student the test. All of those things work. And so even for someone who does not even have a certificate to teach ESL, Off2Class is made to be super supportive so that people can use it in their communities so that the people who need to learn English can have access to it without, we talked before about these business barriers, making websites, marketing yourself, all of those things. Well, we really will also want to lower this technology barrier and this knowledge barrier of, well, I can't teach because I need to get the certification and I need to get all this training and I don't know I wouldn't even know where to start. We really try to break it down as simple as possible to say, if you see, if there is a need for ESL that you recognize, these are the tools to help you meet this need.
Okay, and you mentioned a free plan as well. Can you tell me a little
That's
bit about what's included in this free plan? I know it's a very new thing for Off2Class, and how it is different to the paid for plans.
Yes. So yeah, this is a new thing for us. We're definitely excited to offer our new free plan. We've been working on this basically since late March, when the demand for online learning in all things just became super strong all over the world.
Right.
So we decided then that we wanted to make something that was more accessible. So we made this free account. And
Mhm.
in the free account, what you're going to do is you're going to get access to about 150 lessons. And these are lessons that are in the library. They're all specifically designed for online delivery. And by the way, I keep saying online because that's most of the people that we work with. Off2Class works great in person too, whether projecting or sharing a computer screen. We have I talked about these teacher notes. You can bring the teacher notes up on your phone, right? So if I were sitting across the table from you and I was teaching you, and it was like I was sliding my laptop so that you can see, and I still, I can have the teacher notes right here so that I can see them.
Yeah.
So it gives you access to 150 of the lessons from the library. It gives you access to the placement test, and it lets you create up to 20 student accounts. So you wouldn't need to pay for anything unless you wanted to do more than 20 students. Or you were really doing this more and said, I need more of this library. I need more than these 150 lessons. So the Off2Class paid plans are the same as they were. Nothing has actually changed with them.
Okay.
We've introduced a free plan so that more people can have access, and so that people who are in the investigative side of it, people who are not already, I'm an online teacher and now I'm just looking for the best tool.
Right.
Well, that's always been Off2Class's strength. But what we're doing now is we're meeting a need for people who are saying, I think I might be interested in this, but I'm not sure yet. Now we can say, okay, great. Here's our tool, which can be kind of like your hub for student management and tracking progress and teaching. And these are all of our resources of of the webinar to get started, our tutorial videos, our Facebook community with all the other teachers who you can ask questions to. So it's about providing, number one, the material, the raw material, and number two, about the support for a new teacher and the 100 questions that the new teacher has.
Okay. And you mentioned that there is 150 lessons available on the free plan. I mean, I think
Correct.
that's incredible. I think a very generous free plan there. But can you explain what kind of lessons they are? Are they different levels? Is it general English? What's included in
Yes.
the 150 lessons, and how does that compare to the whole catalog, for example? How many lessons do you have now?
So overall, there's over 1,000 in the library.
Okay.
Um, and so what we did in the free plan was in the free account is designed to give you some of everything.
Okay.
So you're going to be able to get some phrasal verbs, a few sections from all the explicit grammar categories. So if you want to teach prepositions, you want to teach conditionals, all of these different categories. So once you log in to off2class.com with an account, then you're taken to the lesson library. And all of the lessons are arranged in these drop downs by category. So what we tried to do is we took the most common and the most popular categories, and we added several lessons from each of those. So yeah, it's really a variety when we want to cover as many bases as possible, because we wanted it to be something that somebody can actually use, not as a way to just get you in the door and now you need it and now you're going to have to upgrade, right? That's not why we made this. This was made very, very deliberately to give the widest possible cross section of the lesson library so that it's something you can really sink your teeth into and use. Now, if you want more than 20 students, or you want to start like doing you want access to more of the placement test. So the paid plans basically bring an expanded feature set, right? We're talking about more lessons. We're talking about more of the placement test, and just other details. All of that is available on the pricing page. So, but the free plan is there as something where you can get started with it. And for a lot of people, that will serve their purpose. Like there are a lot of people who simply won't need a paid plan, and that's completely fine with us. And we want them to use Off2Class in the way that's going to fit their situation.
Yeah.
So for people who are just getting started or not ESL backgrounds, then they're going to be fine on a free plan, at least in the beginning. But for people who do transition through and become, all right, I've got some students and I'm a real online teacher now, those are the people who will probably want to upgrade down the road. But in the beginning, free plan.
Okay. And there's no time limit to the free plan?
No, on the free account, there's no time limit.
Okay. Are you still offering a trial, a 30-day trial period for the full plan, or has that changed over to the free plan?
Correct. So it used to be a 30-day free trial. But what we've done now is you start out by signing up for a free account. That's what you make.
Okay.
And in the past, the free trial, that it was not access to everything for 30 days and then withdrawn.
Hmm.
It really, and this was a little bit of a confusing thing, is people said, well, I'm on a free trial, can't I open all of the lessons? But that's not how it worked. It was really designed as a test. So even on the free trial, which is gone now, you could only open a certain number of the lessons, so that you would then need to decide, is this for me? If it's for me, time for a paid plan. So now with the free account, there's no more trial and more lessons are open, and you can create 20 student accounts. On the old version, you could just do 2. It really was just made to see, do you want to use this? And here it is. And if you want to use it, then you'll probably need to upgrade. Now it's a really fundamentally different approach with the free account. It's got everything you need to just run with it. And if you want to go deeper, go deeper. If not, perfect. Stick with free.
Excellent. Sounds like a great change to the system. I know a lot of people are going to be very excited about this, being able to access it without the pressures of a 30-day trial or not knowing if it's going to be right for them, investing up front. So yeah, I think it's an excellent move. So that's great. All right.
Yeah,
So
we're super excited, and we've had more people signing up for accounts recently than we've had in, maybe ever, as far as the amount of people in the amount of time,
yeah,
because I think this is what a lot of people were waiting for and were wanting, so that they could come in at a level that fits where they currently are.
okay, great. So in terms of what people need, we've talked about the initial hardware setup, software, and now lesson materials. What about if you want to take it a little bit further and maybe use it with other tools that online tutors might already be using? So, for example, if someone's already using an online whiteboard, like BitPaper, for example,
Hmm.
could
Absolutely.
these two things be used together, Off2Class and an online whiteboard like BitPaper?
Absolutely. So we made Off2Class to serve as much as we could this core functionality of what the most people will need to teach online. Off2Class is not, and really will never be, something that that covers everything, because online teachers have very specific needs. So what we tried to do is we said, okay, what do all online teachers need? Let's make those things. But there is a certain segment of people who say, I really need a more robust whiteboard. So Off2Class has a whiteboard that's baked in,
Hmm.
but it will never be able to offer the functionality of something like BitPaper. So for me, I was a whiteboard user before I was even an Off2Class user. My story of Off2Class is that I was a customer first before I joined the team. Um, but for me, before I discovered Off2Class, for me, an online whiteboard was the hub of my online tutoring, because for some people they use Google Docs, right? It's the same idea, right? But it's a collaborative, it's real time. But a document, I end up feeling restricted by a document. I want to draw, right? I want to be able to make arrows. I want to paste a picture in a really fast, efficient way that just is not going to work in a document. Like I do all kinds of fun things with my students where I'll go to Google, and you get really good at it, right? You go to Google Maps, you grab a screenshot of my city or my state, I paste it onto the whiteboard, I draw an arrow to where I live, and I say, or I'll do the United States, where now I want you to use the pen tool and circle the places you've been. Have you been here? Let's do it in your home country. We develop little things like that. Like that's now something that's kind of in my repertoire that I do with my students.
Yeah.
So something like that is really well suited for a whiteboard. And so what we do have a lot of teachers who do that sort of thing, like me, is they'll, in addition to Off2Class, which is where they get their lesson materials, when they want to add that kind of personal flavor, as this is like the thing that they do, the special thing that they do, they'll use a tool like BitPaper,
Right.
where they'll say, okay, student, and it works really simply, right? Like I've got a browser with 2 tabs, and my Off2Class classroom is one, and my BitPaper is another.
Yeah.
And I'm here, and you're my student, and we're on Zoom, and we're doing some stuff in the classroom. And then the student asks a question that I want to switch to BitPaper for, and I'll say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and switch to the BitPaper tab. So I switch to my tab, the student switches their tab, and once again, just like the Off2Class slides, it's all synced.
Yeah.
So I draw something, the student sees it. Again, no need to share a screen, right? Because then we're dragging windows around and all of that stuff, right? And I don't want them to see my notes document where I write all of the things about them. So here, where we've got the materials in one, the whiteboard in another. So it does make sense. Is that how you do it? Like, I'm actually curious to hear from you as someone who is also a whiteboarder, so to speak. How is that how you do it with students?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you've just explained there with two tabs or two windows open is absolutely how I would operate during a lesson. Got your lesson materials, and then you've got your whiteboard. Sometimes you're on one, sometimes you're on the other. Sometimes the two kind of come together in a way. But yeah, I mean, I use a second monitor, which I also find to be extremely useful for things like that. Um, let's say, for example, if you're not a big fan of second
No,
monitors.
ultra wide.
Oh, ultra wide. Okay, just lots more space. But in this way, whether it's an extra wide screen or another monitor, I can, let's say, for example, I can have my teacher's notes on one screen and the slides on another screen, or the whiteboard on one screen, and something else I always like to have an online dictionary open during an English lesson. That's a top tip for new ESL teachers, by the way. I don't know about you. Do you ever use an online dictionary?
That's actually, I have in the past. There's like a learner's dictionary that is super helpful. Um,
Yeah, my
now,
preference is the Macmillan Learner's Dictionary.
okay,
That's
yeah. So Off2Class does have a baked in dictionary. So it's actually really neat. If you're on a lesson slide, you can right click on a word. And if you right click on a word, there's a few things that it'll bring up. One is you can do an image search on the word because sometimes it's
that's
so
a
much faster.
that's a neat function. I like that, the image search.
Yeah, right. I mean,
A picture can
if
tell a
there's,
thousand words, as they say, right?
yeah, I wish I could think of a good example, but there are so many times, like violin. If someone's like, what's a violin? Well, it's like this string instrument and it's made of wood and it's like
Guitar,
this
right?
big and you, yeah, right. Whereas like if you right click and do image search in new tab
Yeah.
immediately, oh, I know what that is, right? So you can do an image search. You can use Google Translate from within Off2Class to translate a word to a student's native language. And one of the other features is a dictionary.
Right.
So if I right click, I can click on define. It will show both me and the student the dictionary, and then I can close it.
That's great.
But so I don't use one as much anymore, but I do see the value of that is as like a core tool if it's something that you want to like continually reference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly for students that are keen on things like pronunciation, and really drilling down into the different sounds and how they're represented in the IPA, for example. So yeah, for me that's always very useful. And then whether you're using something like bit paper, you can then record everything that crops up during the lesson, whether it comes up in your Off2Class slide, or whether it's an image or a word from the dictionary. You can constantly be pasting that in there and effectively creating a record of the lesson as you go. And I think that's very useful.
I absolutely agree. And that was one of my primary reasons for using a whiteboard when I was really more heavily using the whiteboard was because of this kind of digital notebook aspect of it so that it was very easy for the student never had to say, what am I learning in my lessons? It's all right there, and the bigger the whiteboard gets, the more the student can look back and be like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff that we've done. And what did we do, 3 Tuesdays ago? Well, it's right there. So there's definitely a lot of benefits to using that kind of tool to complement online teaching.
Okay, great. All right, so I guess as we start to wrap up our conversation, what should a tutor do next? Really, what should I do right now
Okay.
to get going?
Okay, so if you're brand new, let's say you're brand new. Here's what I suggest actually. This is the order of operations. The order of operations that I suggest is to kind of follow the formula of eat the frog. So eating the frog, right, is a productivity principle of doing the most difficult thing first.
Right.
So if you want to eat the frog and jump in, I would almost even suggest finding the student before you do anything else.
Yeah.
Because let's say I send out a few messages, a few emails. I'm doing the hard work first. Well, let's say a student says, yeah, great, let's meet next week. Oh boy. I've got
Some
something on the
motivation
couch
right there.
right now. And now what that does is it really contextualizes things. If I've got 5 days, I'm not going to spend time pondering logo colors.
Right.
I am going to do that provides externally, it forces the prioritization of what is most important. Now,
Yeah.
most people that, especially when they're new, I understand that that's probably too much for some, like we do need to be comfortable, and that might remove too much of the comfort. So that aside, here's what I would do. Um, I would create a Google account if you don't have one. I feel like probably, most people do in 2020. Create a Google account because so that you can get Google Calendar. So you need to get these specific tools. You need to get Google Calendar. You need to go to calendly.com and set up a calendar because it's free and it integrates with Google Calendar. I actually think it might even integrate with others. If it does, that works. So here's kind of what I'm doing. Every specific tool that I'm suggesting until Off2Class really has options. So you need to get a calendar software recommendation, Google Calendar. You need to get a scheduling software recommendation, Calendly. You need to get a video conferencing software recommendation, Zoom. You need to get payment processing software recommendation, PayPal. These are the 4 key things you need, and a computer with a webcam and a a $5 set of headphones, right? You don't have to go crazy. So these are the four things you need ahead of time. And then the 5th piece is the free Off2Class account. If you have those 5 things, whether you're certified or not, whether you have experience or not, whether you've been doing this never or you've been doing it for 10 years, whether you're a classroom teacher trying to transition online,
Right.
those are the things that you need. Don't overcomplicate. And then once you have those 5 things, you can do the hard part and ask a student and then do the 5 things, or you can do the 5 things first. But once you have those 5 things, I would really encourage anyone who's going through this process to not make a step 6. Don't make a step 6. Go for, and look, things like a whiteboard, if there's something like that, then you can add that in, right? Maybe that can be step 6. But the idea is to reduce the amount of time that you spend planning before you acquire a student. Your effort as soon as possible should transit, and this, we're kind of ending where we began, to make the effort, focus your effort on getting students. Because look, whether I'm talking to one individual online tutor or whether I'm talking to an online language school that has hundreds of students, this piece of advice is the same. In order for you to have success, you need to have students coming in your virtual doors. That's the difference between this is working and it's not working. I've got more students coming, working. I have no students, not working. Easy to judge whether it's working or not. And so that's where the focus needs to be. And by setting these things up, most specifically Off2Class, it makes it so that as your teacher, you can put your focus there, not on tinkering. Because if you're spending your time tinkering with your tools, you're not focusing on getting your students. And then if no students are coming in, it's not working. Okay. So it's all about helping teachers and giant language schools, because it's the same thing. Keep students coming in the door. Focus on that. That will be the lifeblood, the marker of what defines success. And having these things in place, make it so that the rest of the stuff, is already kind of running. Don't need to worry about it. I'm going to devote my mental energy, my resources, my thinking, my brainstorming and problem solving to getting the students coming in my virtual doors.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like strong advice. One personal tip. When I first started teaching online, I also tried to eat the frog as quickly as possible, get students as quickly as possible. And if you're feeling a little bit nervous, like I was, when I first got started, I think it's natural to be a little nervous about doing your first online lesson. I actually did a trial lesson, not the trial lesson that you've been talking about, but a test or demo
Test.
lesson with a family member. This
Perfect.
was a family member who was a non-native, so it was
That's ideal.
right, exactly. So a cousin of a family member in South Korea, and we had an online lesson, but I treated it as if they were a real paying customer. So even if then they're not actually paying you for that first lesson, it's still a test. Imagine like it's your first student, and it was a great first step for me. It took the pressure off a little bit, knowing that they weren't expecting this wonderful, polished, experienced online tutor, but at the same time it was real. They needed an English lesson. That was something
Hmm.
that they were looking forward to, and I was able to deliver my first online lesson, and that gave me the confidence to go out and find someone who would actually pay. And when I did get that first paying student, which wasn't long after, I didn't approach it like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. This is my first ever lesson. I
Right.
hope it's okay." No, I was going in confidently. Hey, I'm an online tutor. I'm gonna deliver this lesson, and away I went. And that was 8 years ago now, and
Yeah.
I still actually teach that one student, my very first paying customer, by the way.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it just goes to show, if you get your student and you do a good job and they're happy with what you offer, then they can really be a long-term student. So,
And refer others.
and refer others, exactly. Yeah. This can
Yeah.
this can be a good way to start to build out your network.
I think that's really great advice because in anything we are doing that's new, the biggest qualitative improvement will be the second time over the first time,
Right.
right? Because any big mistakes you're going to make, they're going to be the first time.
Yeah.
So anything we can do to like get that out of the way in a lower pressure situation, yeah, that's great advice. I'm going to start recommending that to people. First time trial lesson, do a kind of a test. It can be, it doesn't even have to be with a non-native speaker. Of course, that would be ideal.
Right.
But do a dry run with somebody. Two people. You guys are new. Pair off. Do it with each other,
Yeah, learn
and
from each
give it a
other.
shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But you're right, equally a friend or a family member, even just to get a little bit of confidence up with the technical side of things, because
Right.
even though, as you've mentioned, it's all ready to go, it's relatively straightforward. Everyone has to start somewhere. So,
Right.
just starting a Zoom call and getting that started with the Off2Class slides going, does take a little bit of practice. So
Sure.
there's no harm in practicing, but don't let that become the only thing you do. Don't practice too much. Jump in,
Right. Exactly.
jump
Right.
in,
It's
have a
always
go,
finding that balance.
and before you know it, you'll be off.
Yeah. Okay. That's great, Matt. I feel like we've covered a lot of good ground there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wealth of experience, and also giving us a much better insight into Off2Class, and particularly the new and exciting free plan that's now available. I know that you can sign up right now at off2class.com. And yeah, if you ever have questions about Off2Class, you can easily contact the Off2Class team directly on the website. Is that the
Absolutely.
best?
We've
Is
got
that
the
the
little
best way if
chat.
you've got
Yeah,
questions?
so we've got our little chat widget that's in the bottom right corner of
Yeah.
the website. I don't know, it might be over here. And so the other thing we do is we refer a lot of new teachers into the Facebook group. So whether you want to search for the Off to Class Facebook group, but as soon as you sign up for a free account, that will be in the onboarding because it's this, we do get the same issues, the same questions, the same things. Everyone tends to go through a very similar process. And so by going into the Facebook group, that's where you got a lot of other people who have all done the same thing. And in the beginning, I was doing all the posting in the Facebook group. And now I love this. Someone asks a question, and people that I don't even know are providing really great answers. So it's become this really great self-sustaining thing. And part of it is like, we make sure there's no spam and all that kind of stuff, so that it becomes this safe place for online teachers where they know there's going to be their good things. So yes, that is an important component of it. You do get directed to that when you sign up for the free account, but the Facebook group is a great place that gives that sense of community and collaboration, professional development, and people who have already kind of gone through this process are very willing to share what worked for them.
Great. So just know there's always help, there's always support there for you. Any questions that you have getting set up, or even if you've been doing it for a while and you just want to jump into the Facebook group or the chat widget on the website, I know that the team at Off2Class are going to be there ready to help you with that. So that's all good.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll finish there for today. Thanks again, Chris. Great to have you on the Smart Online Tutoring blog. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great being here. Thank you so much for having me, Matt. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. All right. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.